Welcome to this podcast. So in this podcast, what I thought I'd do was I'd actually talk a little bit about my journey and how I got into course creating, and then lastly how I got into Zenler and how that kind of all happened for me. And it was a kind of natural progression. So I did a college HND, Higher National Diploma in design back, and I finished in 1989. Whoa, that's a long time ago. But I was always interested in art, and I was always producing things, painting and selling my photographs and paintings and illustrations even before I went to college. So I did the HND course, and straight from that I walked into a job at a model making company. Actually, it did more than model making. It actually started off as a film company. It used to do props for films, such as sort of all the puppeteering type films like Thunderbirds, you might know of, like Space 1999, Captain Scarlet, all of these, or Thunderbirds, all of these type of ones. It was doing all the models and all those things for it. So this is how it kind of developed. And that company then started going into the aerospace industry and producing big models, massive, great models, like sometimes quarter scale models. That's how big they were, for all of the major airlines, all of them. You know, literally, there's too many to mention. All the big ones, of course, British Airways, Qantas, American Airlines, Emirates, Qantas. I mean, there's just too many to name. It's pretty much all of them. Because we were specialists in this area and doing what's called livery work, which is design, we were also asked to do designs for private jets and things like that. So we do all the designs for the jets, and then they would go on and they would use them. And so that same company also, as well as doing these things like these models, and lots of models were actually put into things like travel agent windows. So the company like Qantas would order these, and then they would go into the travel agent's windows, and also like special ones for like the director's, CEO's desk, all this kind of thing, you know. So it was all like this, and we did some in gold, you know, silver, all sorts of stuff. So very, very varied. But not only that, I mean, I was there for 10 years, guys, so, you know, a long time. When I first started, I was doing everything by hand, right, using ink pens, you know, on artboards with drawing tables, and using things like PMT cameras, photomechanical cameras, to actually process all the flat black and white art to be turned into screen printing plates, for the stuff to be screen printed or litho printed. Whatever we had to do. So I was actually in the design department. I had one other guy as my senior, and that's how that kind of began. But the company also specialised in stuff doing military work. So we did a lot of stuff for MOD, the Air Force, American Air Force. I like just so many different. Some I can't disclose some of the information because it was non-disclosure. Lots of it is non-disclosure work for the military. So, but we did basically create full-size missiles for the actual bomb disposal to actually disarm. So this was things, they go off, they come back, and we'd also do the missiles for the crewmen to actually practice loading them onto the planes. So, you know, fully weighted, full-size missiles, like full of lead, you know, and they were used to practice, because obviously a lot cheaper than the full-size missiles or the Hellfires or whatever they're using. And we did lots of simulation stuff as well. So we would do dioramas and scenarios of simulation machines and all of this sort of stuff. So there's a ton of different things we used to do. And all of that, the back of that, because we were specialists in painting, and I got involved in every area of the company over the 10 years. I was spraying, I was producing patterns, I was also doing my job, which is my artwork job, but I was doing all these other things as well. And it was a great time for me because there were all these really talented talented people in different areas, and I was picking up all this information from them. It was like a kid in a candy shop. And I remember, you know, always in my head I've had it that anything I do, I want to be enjoying the work I'm doing. If I'm not enjoying the work I'm doing, then I don't want to be there. And I've always had that ethos in my head. And I proved the point. I've worked for companies, gone, this is not my thing, and I just got out, even though they could be really good jobs. But people sit in for a few years and become managers or whatever, and then they earn good money and those things. But if the job's not good for me, I get the hell out of there, and that's what I do. So that's the way I'm driven, and this company really gave me that kind of platform to really try things out as well. I mean, at the time, like I told you, we were using like RubyLift, and for you guys that have been in the design business for a while, you know, going back a few decades, you'll know RubyLift, PMT cameras, like, you know, all the repeater graph pens, all this sort of stuff. You'll know all of that. And flexi curves. Remember flexi curves? Fabulous. And Letraset letters that you used to use burnishers to get onto the stuff. I mean, happy days. But then, of course, you know, the company I've always been very much into computers. So when the first computers I had them at home, and I was working with, I remember the first proper computer, the first thing that could do anything halfway decent was an Amiga 500. With a great big box that was 1.5 megabytes. Woohoo! 1.5 megabytes. Wow, that was a hard drive, and it was like a shoebox. It was huge, and quite expensive at the time as well. But you know, I was using that when I was a kid, and the only reason being was I remember I saw this show on TV called Top of the Pops, and they were using it, and I was like, oh look, they're doing all these kind of fractal designs and doing all this stuff. That must be, wow, that's really cool. Oh, they're using an Amiga 500. Well, I can buy one of those. So I did, and so from that, obviously things got better and faster really quick, as they did in technology back in them days, and it still does to this day. And I remember when the first Macs come out as well. That was like a revolution. Yeah, you know, and using the BBC computers, the black ones, they were. Anyway, I digress. And I basically was saying that I think that there's a way that we could actually, you know, incorporate this into our work, our livery work that we're doing, because we used to produce 3D designs in flat, so they could be printed and then wrapped around the models. So how could we do this? Can we use that computers to do this? So I started doing some tests and trying things out by scanning the line art in, and actually just starting to colour it up and produce all the outputs from it. And you know, it was successful. Computers got better, and then we started to move on to Apple's, and then it was like, right, okay, let's invest. So the company was in buying these computers and these big machines for producing out the artwork, and that's how I kind of got into it, and that's how I turned what I already knew and got the company involved in that. And the next thing that come along was CNC printers, like massive great printers in them days, and I was like, well, we can produce 3D files, and then we can actually print out instead of carving it with wood, we can actually print it out of foam, or print it out of resin. So we moved into that, and we got all that, and all that was going, and all that was working, and it was 10 years, and I decided that I wanted to travel, you know, take a year out and travel around, and I did. I travelled Australia. So I took a year out, travelled Australia, and you know, it's hard to remember what I did when I came back. I actually worked for a beverage industry. So notice at this point, I'm not talking anything about teaching online courses, any of this stuff, because this is not my main background. It's all design based. So I went off for a year, and I come back, and I went and worked for this company called Claessens International. And anyone that's in the beverage or the beverage bottle label industry will know of Claessens International. It's a Dutch firm. It's very well known, and I didn't like it. It was far too forced. You were very much pigeonholed. I stuck that out for just under a year, and I could have stayed there, but I didn't want to, so I left there and I actually went to Canterbury, which is a lovely little place in the southeast of the UK. And Canterbury Cathedral, some of you might know, Canterbury Tales, you know. So yeah, I was there for a year and I was painting and selling commission paintings. Oh, it's really weird. And then I was also doing website design as well. I started to get into that. And then I started working for a marketing company and stayed there for another 10 years. But while I was there, I had a great opportunity. It allowed me to use all the latest software to and start to get into photo retouching, illustration work, website designs, obviously coding, all this stuff, and I started to develop that over 10 years, plus coming on from the back of Space Models as well. And self-taught, all of this was self-taught. Everything I'm telling you was self-taught from books back then. The internet wasn't as good as it is now. And in that interim, in that 10-year interim, it kind of like things changed quite a lot, and the internet got a lot better. There was a lot more information. It started becoming easier to learn from the internet itself. So that's kind of what happened, and it was like 10 years for this PR marketing company where, you know, obviously marketing, media, I was getting involved in every aspect of the company, as I always do, because I love to learn and know about every single side of everything that's going on in any business. And I think you, especially if you're running your own company, you should know every single thing that's going on. Or at least to a level where you can have a professional conversation with someone. So this is how that kind of went. And I didn't have to go in the office. I did originally, but then I started working remotely at home, and then I started doing my own projects. And then I started to realise that as I was learning all these programs and going through this hell on earth to learn how to use things like Adobe Dreamweaver, like Flash, Photoshop, Illustrator, you name it. What happened then was, I'm trying to get the timeline right here, because actually I'd learned that stuff before I went to Canterbury, and I was actually doing training courses up London, and then I came back and then I went to Canterbury, but I still had this training thing because I really liked it. I'd had a little taster of it for about 2-3 months, and I actually really liked teaching people. And I actually taught the people that do the Mr. Bean cartoons, like how to actually digitize that and do that all in Photoshop and Illustrator. So I actually taught them how to do that, how to do it. So speeding their workflow up, basically taking what they've got and making it a faster workflow. So that's how that came about. And then I obviously went to Canterbury and started doing the websites, PR marketing stuff, working my way through that, doing illustration, you name it, like every part of design, because it was only a small company, and because I was eager to learn, I would take every single project on and learn them all upside down. But at the same time, I was learning this stuff, realizing how hard it was for me to learn it all, and I decided to start to produce some YouTube videos. And that's how I kind of got into it. So I already loved teaching. I knew that was something that resonated with me inside. I couldn't even explain it. And so I then decided to do these YouTube videos, and I started to produce these YouTube videos. I started to get followers, and then I decided one day, oh, do you know what, I'll turn it into a course. And I knew of Udemy, and I knew it was an easy way of, they market for you, fabulous, I don't have to bother, put a course up there. And I started putting lots of courses up there, and I still got courses on there, and I started to make significant money, even though Udemy take a massive cut. And from there, I then had a look at other platforms where I was like, do you know what, I'm going to market all myself. It is a pain, but I'm going to start to do it all myself. So that's exactly what happened. I had a big audience on my Udemy channel, on my YouTube channels, and Facebook groups, and then I started to set up my own site, and I went across to Kajabi, Teachable, Thinkific, and I found Zenler. Now I already found Zenler before I found the rest of them, and I got involved in it a little bit, and I talked to Rakesh, and this was like years ago. And I talked to Rakesh, and I was like, do you know what, this is a really good platform. I'd like to sort of do some training. So I did some little bits for him to help promote Zenler, before I worked for Zenler, and then I tried some of these other platforms, and I kind of left it all stagnant. And I just thought, you know what, I'll stick with Udemy. I haven't got the time. I'm doing too many other projects, because this is where I was just working for myself, doing my marketing work as well. So I didn't have the time to do it. But then I was like, do you know what? I need to make some sort of plan. So my plan was, right, okay, what I'll do is I'll watch the money coming in. As soon as my course money from Udemy starts to outweigh the money that I'm earning from this marketing company, then I'll make that switch. And it didn't really happen, because it was quite a lot. And then this kind of recession hit, where I wasn't getting as much money. My courses were higher, but it still wasn't enough. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want to stay in this. If I work on my own, I can make 4 times the money I can make by working for someone else. And I was getting jaded by the whole website experience. And not only that, I was getting pretty jaded with people that don't know anything about design actually making tweaks to something that is perfect and not actually giving a reason behind it. It used to drive me nuts, to the point where I just in the end was like, you know what. And my wife was a big influence behind this, because she turned around to me and said, like, they're just using you, David, you know, they're just making money off you, and they don't care. And I get very vested in people, you know. I think that everyone's out to treat me well, like I would treat them, but actually that's not the case at all, you know. And I understand it's business, you've got to be cutthroat, but I mean, come on. So I always treat people I employ very, very well. I always give them bonuses. I always pay them as much as I can afford, because I know that they're going to stick with me. And this is my ethos, and this is what I believe in. This I think is Rakesh's belief as well, and that's why he treats us very, very well. So anyway, I really liked Rakesh, and I saw, you know what, that was the amazing thing. I saw Rakesh on these on Facebook, like every minute of every hour of every day, he was replying and helping people. And I was like, that guy, he's amazing, you know. I work crazy hours, but in those days that was just madness to me. And it's really nice that he's still working just as mad, I'm pretty sure, but he's more on the development. He's looking after the platform, because we've picked up what 3 people have picked up what one that Rakesh was doing all on his own, which is so funny. So so I then invested. I then got into Zenler, and I started to make money and just do my own thing, and moved away from Udemy completely, and brought a lot of students across who found me via organic search and paid adverts and those things. And then there was a job come up on a thing, and I was like, do you know what, I really would like to do some stuff for Zenler. So I started talking to Rakesh. He already knew me, and it was pretty easy. We just got on, and I told him my views, and he already knew what I was doing. At that time I wasn't really ever on camera, and I've actually taught in person on a few different occasions. You can make really good money. I used to go to these private training centres and teach on Adobe products and Microsoft products. I used to do that fairly regularly and make a lot of money from that for spending a day there. So you're talking like 600 quid. So, you know, not bad for a day. So I was going there and just doing these things every now and again. So I really liked doing the stuff in person. But whenever I did my own stuff, I always screen shared, and I never actually came on camera myself like I am now. Like you guys listening to some podcasts, you won't see me, but there's a video that accompanies this on our YouTube channel. And so when I joined Zenler, obviously it's really important that I was on camera, which I was a little bit uncomfortable with, but then I got used to it very, very quickly. And this is what I was saying, this is what I've said to people about camera confidence and presenting. The more you do it, the better you're going to get, the more comfortable you're going to get there just talking in front of a camera and not actually talking to anybody at this precise time. You're going to be listening to this later, but not at this time. So that was really good. There was things I was doing wrong, but I've had some coaching on that, and this has been a learning thing as well. Rakesh has been feeding back what I need to improve on. Even the community tell us what they want and what we need to improve on. And team members as well, we all work together. It's actually a really nice experience. So that's where I've got to, and that's where I am now. So I am a course creator. I do teach in person, and I've done all of this stuff all to get to the point that I am now, which I think is where I am now is actually where I should be. It's exactly where I should be at this point in time. Okay, and it's a bit of an adventure, because it's really quite exciting time with the advent of AI coming along and all of these things. It's really quite interesting. And so that's my story, guys. That is me. That is the person that's doing these podcasts. If you haven't seen me, then you've listened to me, and you can hear this story of God. So what I'd like you to do, is to share your stories. So if you've got a story, you can reach out to me, david@zenler.com. That's ZENLER.com. Okay, david@zenler.com, and share your story. And what I might do is I might read it out as a blog, or I might ask you if you want to come on and do a blog to share your story, because these are amazing. These are journeys. These are like where you come from. Now, obviously, I've summed that up fairly quickly, like in 21 minutes. What has been decades and decades of work. Since 1989, I've been working professionally across creative sectors, and course creation, marketing, all this stuff I consider creative. So if you've got a story to share, then definitely get in contact with me and we can put you up on our podcast. So guys, that is me. That is David Newton, or David Zenler, aka. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast by us at Zenler. See you soon, guys. Bye.